Kamusta? Welcome sa ating panibagong aralin. Today, we're diving into a super fascinating concept called Lipunang Pang-ekonomiya, or the economic society. Pag-uusapan natin kung paano eksaktong nakakaapekto ang malaking ekonomiya ng bansa sa mismong daily budget mo. Whether you're wondering why some regions are way wealthier than others, or you're just trying to figure out how to stretch your own allowance, this explainer is definitely for you. Let's get right into it. Real quick, here is our roadmap for today. We'll start with ang Lipunang Pang-ekonomiya, then we'll jump into a little story called the Kwento na Economy Island. After that, we'll tackle the big debate, Pantay versus Patas. Then we'll look at mga suliraning pang-ekonomiko, and finally, we'll wrap up with ang ating budget plan. Alright, let's go. Unang bahagi, the economic society, or Lipunan Pang-ekonomiya. Think about a family. Usually the parents manage the household budget, right? Well, sa lipunan, the government does this. The government manages the wealth of society. Pero let's bring it right to your front door. Our textbook asks a very direct question. Paano mo pinagkakasya ang pera mo? Literally, how do you budget your money when your allowance is super limited? Paano mo pinaghahati ang pera mo para sa pagkain, pamasahe, at ipon? That personal struggle you go through just to make ends meet. That is literally economics in action. You're already acting like a little economist in your own daily life. Moving on to part 2, let's explore a thought experiment from the book called The Kwento de Island Economy. Picture two totally different citizens living on this island. On one side, you have Robert. Robert is a rich businessman. He has excess capital, owns local businesses, and can easily afford to send his 2 kids to a really exclusive school. But on the exact opposite side, we have Julio. Julio is an underpaid mechanic. He didn't finish school, but he took vocational courses just to survive. Now, despite Julio working incredibly hard, kulang pa rin ang kinikita niya. It's never enough, so he actually dreams of leaving the island to work abroad just to feed his family. And right in the middle of these two, nandyan si Alfred. Alfred is a university professor who represents the middle class. Sakto lang ang sweldo niya for his 3 kids. He makes a decent salary, just enough to get by without extra to spare. So this island's reality shows us that people inherently have totally different starting lines, different capabilities, jobs, and needs. Kaya ang malaking tanong dito is, paano dapat i-manage ng gobyerno ang yaman kung ganito ka-diverse ang mga tao? That brings us perfectly to part 3, Pantay versus Patas, or in English, equality versus equity. So ano nga ba ang pinagkaiba? Ang pantay, or equality, means giving everyone the exact same slice of the pie, pare-pareho. But according to the philosopher Max Scheler, because we are fundamentally not identical in our needs and capabilities, simply dividing the wealth equally isn't actually fair. Think about it. That's why our goal should be patas, or equity. Equity means giving people exactly what they need based on their unique circumstances so they can reach their full potential. St. Thomas Aquinas actually called this the principio ng proportion, or the principle of proportion. See, justice isn't about identical equality. It's like in a family. Kung ang isang anak ay kailangan ng extra budget para sa isang malaking school project, bibigyan siya ng nanay ng mas malaking pera kaysa sa kapatid niya na walang project. She gives more to the child who has an immediate specific need. That right there is the principle of proportion, distributing resources appropriately to foster everyone's growth. Alright, let's zoom out to the national level for part 4, mga suliraning pang-ekonomiko, or our economic problems. Mapapaisip ka talaga, bakit kahit laging binabalita na tumataas ang GDP or gross domestic product natin, ang dami pa ring mahirap? It's a fantastic question. The answer lies in the structure of our free enterprise system. Kadalasan, capitalists generate the wealth, but it is severely maldistributed. It's not spread out properly. Only a few at the very top actually benefit from that growth, while the vast majority, the hardworking laborers, are simply left behind. Get this. Ayon sa datos mula sa ating textbook, a staggering 60% of our national wealth and resources are heavily concentrated in just the National Capital Region and Luzon. Just let that sink in. Ibig sabihin, 40% lang ang pinaghahati-hatian ng buong Visayas, Mindanao at iba pang probinsya. This massive geographic concentration of wealth forces people to migrate to the cities looking for jobs, which just creates a really severe cycle of inequality. Isipin nyo itong numerong ito. 500 pesos. In a 2015 Social Weather Stations survey, this was identified as the absolute daily minimum an ordinary citizen needed just to buy food and survive the day. And we all know mas mataas na yan ngayon dahil sa inflation, right? Kapag nasa itaas lang ang yaman, hitting even this basic daily minimum becomes an impossible battle for millions of Filipinos. Dahil dito, we face massive systemic problems. Una, kawalan ng hanap buhay or unemployment. And listen, hindi ito dahil tamad ang mga tao. Walang trabaho dahil walang umiikot na pera sa mga komunidad nila. Pangalawa, tirahan or housing. Since all the wealth is in the city, land becomes ridiculously expensive. Real estate is treated as a pure investment, which completely prices out the poor. This forces working-class families to become informal settlers, living in unsafe conditions just to be close to their jobs. It is textbook systemic inequality.
So what do we do about it? Let's bring it back to you in our final section, ang ating budget plan.
Let's look at the Mom's Budget Plan activities sa ating libro. Have you ever noticed paano hinahati ng inyong mga magulang ang household income para sa pagkain, pamasahe at pangbayad sa bills? Ginagawa nila ang pagiging patas or equity araw-araw. They are constantly using the principle of proportion to make sure your family's most critical needs are met first, even when resources are super tight. Ngayon, it's your turn for the My Budget Plan activity. Imagine you were given a 1,000 peso budget for a typical 5-day school week. Paano mo ito hahatiin mula Lunes hanggang Biyernes fairly and efficiently? Be honest, if you blow it all on wants on Monday, baka wala ka ng pamasahe by Friday. This exercise forces you to prioritize your absolute needs over your wants, teaching you the fundamental skill of resource management. I want you to remember this quote from our textbook. Treating money as a capital asset is the routine condition of our socio-economic system in actual life. Anong ibig sabihin yan? It means money isn't just a piece of paper you use to buy a snack. Ang pera ay isang tool, an asset that actually dictates how our entire society functions. How money is spent, saved, and distributed, whether by a student with 1,000 pesos or a government with trillions, determines whether our society's fair or completely unjust.
Kaya iwan ko sa inyo ang napakahalagang tanong na ito. Bilang bahagi ng Lipunang Pang-ekonomiya, how will you use your own budget to practice fairness, equity, and the common good today? Based on everything we just learned, from Robert and Julio's story all the way to the principle of proportion, being a responsible steward starts right inside your own pocket. Maraming salamat sa pagsama sa ating aralin at hanggang sa muli.